Hi, everybody. My name is Jeremy Siskin. I'm the author of Playing Solo Jazz Piano. Nope, that's this one. And then the Jazz Piano Fundamentals series. And I'm here with an old friend. We've known each other for more than a decade. Um, Peter John Stoltzman, who's a great pianist in the Denver area. He teaches at DU. And let me hit a couple points of your bio before we get into it. So, not only has Peter played with like the top jazz musicians, Steve Gadd, Eddie Gomez, Allison Miller, Tia Fuller, but he's done a real wide variety of music, including contemporary classical music and working with hip hop tracks and accompanying songwriters. And I saw some spoken word stuff recently. Um, but plus, what I think is really interesting is he has a doctorate in music and human learning from UT Austin. And I know that he's been doing a lot of work regarding mindset and flow state. And I think we're going to talk about a little bit of that today, which I'm excited about. So, welcome. Um, and I was hoping before we jump into an exercise you're going to show us that you could say a little bit about your new Patreon that you've got going on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeremy. I appreciate you having me on. I love your content. I watch it. I watch basically every video that
Oh,
comes up. I got
thanks.
notifications on YouTube. I buy your books for my students here. In fact, one of my students this summer has gone through some of your perpetual motion
Oh,
aging.
how cool. Oh, I'm honored.
Yeah, man. Um, yeah, it's a just such an honor to be a colleague with somebody like you and have you invite me onto your thing. I appreciate it, man.
That's so nice.
Um, yeah, so the Patreon channel that I just started, or community as I like to think of it, um, is patreon.com/Peter John Stoltzman. And it's really a chance for people to be connected with me um, in a weekly way, right? That's just going to be ongoing content coming at you with lines, voicings to shed. So one aspect is shedding in 12 keys. This is just such an important part of practice. And I'm shooting videos of myself practicing and talking through as I go. So those exercises, along with transcriptions, walkthroughs of my compositions, and my thinking as a composer, those are all kind of baseline content that come out every week. And then for the next tier, I have office hours, so I do an hour on Zoom every week, and then for the next tier, it's for people who want all that but really want a private lesson. So that's another tier up, and people can get a monthly lesson with me either on Zoom or in person.
Awesome. And you brought an exercise to share
Well, yeah, I
today.
mean, the exercise that I'm thinking about is actually more general, which is about mindset and getting
Great.
to metacognition, and ideally, really like opening the gateway to the flow state, right?
Cool.
Um,
Let's investigate that word metacognition before we go on. I
sure,
kind of know what it means.
sure.
I know meta. I know cognition. Is that thinking about thinking? Is that kind of what that means?
Yes, thinking about thinking and even observing, really. Because it's not just when you're observing, you're not just thinking about your thinking, you're observing your awareness. So in a way, most of our mental processes go on a certain plane, right? And we have some verticality to it of getting deeper into this, and we might lose track of like let's say you lose the form. Oh, because you went too deep into the details and you lost track, right? This was
Right.
a problem for me as a developing jazz pianist. I mean, for a long, 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 long time. It plagued me through doing my doctorate, which is why I got so deep into studying this and trying to figure out how can I actually access those kind of mentally stabilizing, even transcending, but also just like being able to have the overview. And that's really when I think about meta, I think about kind of an umbrella awareness that is observing and then toggling my attention
Mm.
to, let's say, one level of strategic thinking versus one level of executing thinking, versus listening to the band playing around me, listening to what the bass player is doing, uh, thinking about the song form and what's coming next, right? All these things happen in milliseconds, and
Mm.
they're not observable in the same way that you can, observe or measure a lot of other things, right? This internal mental play. Um, but I think they're uh, kind of an untapped land that educators really need to tap into in order to help developing jazz musicians go beyond just that like churning of like how do I play this thing, and then how do I play the next thing, you know,
Hmm.
and then like somehow I'm gonna piece it all together on a bandstand. It's gonna turn into a personal voice, right? Uh,
Right. Yeah. This is resonating with me so much. I was reading The Inner Game of Tennis,
hmm.
which I think is largely about that metacognition. And
Yes.
the author talks about shining your flashlight in different places and kind of moving that flashlight around, physically from your fingertips to your feet to your butt. But also, in terms of what you're listening for, what you're paying attention to. Are you paying attention to the left hand, the balance, the syncopation, the accents, listening, motivic development, and there's so many things in jazz. And I think that's a question that I get a lot from my students is like, how do I know what to pay attention to where, and or how do I pay attention to all of this? Um, and I
Yes.
don't have a good answer other than like move the flashlight around, like practice focusing on these different elements.
Yeah, I'm going to share with you this a couple of things that I have. This is a sheet that I show my students. So I call it a toggle switch.
Mm.
It's the tension toggle switch, and the you said in the tennis book is the light,
Hmm.
whatever
A
light
flashlight.
switch. Yeah, a
Yeah.
flashlight. Yeah, I think also there's like the light bulb of
Mm.
intention, right? So there's attention and intention,
Mm.
and those have a relationship in this. Uh, the intention is like the movement of the flashlight, right? And
Okay.
and and then the attention is just actually what are you shining your light on, and what getting to that metacognition observer awareness will do is it allows you to be intentional with your attention, right?
Mm.
um, and rather than just be like pulled along without intention internally, right? Or like staying on kind of one level of awareness. This is tricky, man. It takes practice, practice, practice. But it's a totally different practice. It's not about, just like get your lines
Hmm.
together,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. In fact, let me share an anecdote, which is interesting. So we met however many years ago, like 15 years ago, in a piano competition. Um, and I was just judging a piano competition last week. And I remember when I was judging or when I was in piano competitions as a student, like I was so focused on certain things. I was like, am I going to execute this sick lick? Like, am I going to get my double time in to really wow the jury? And as a judge, I realized I'm not paying attention to that at all.
mhm.
I'm paying attention to like, is the time good? Is the sound on the piano good? Is there a connection to the tune? Like, what's that level of connectivity and overall like sound? Um,
Yes.
and like the details, I want them to be nice, but like, I'm not gonna be like, this person didn't play sick, clean double time. And it's so interesting to what we get obsessed with in different parts of our you know journey and how much they may or may not matter. Does that resonate with you?
Totally, totally. Uh, I mean, God, every jazz pianist, every performer knows the feeling of thinking about the audience's reactions while they're playing,
Oof,
right?
that's the worst.
You can
Death knell.
and then if you've like pre-planned it, like the
Mm.
audience is gonna like this when I do
Uh-huh.
it, and then it adds a whole other level. Talk about meta, right? A whole other level to your experience. But yeah, let me just here. I'm gonna read this thing if you don't
Okay.
mind, because
Not at
this is
all.
really like a personal statement here. This is like gaining some control of attention is a key element of becoming a musician who's tuned in. Jazz music in particular, demands the utmost flexibility of attention. In one moment, you're listening to the soloist, the next moment, making a musical decision of what to play, while also considering historical precedents. In any given moment of performance, you might be thinking, oh, I suck, or I'm crushing it. Right? And that's like attending to your own reaction, right? Or thinking, that cat listening to me thinks I suck. Or they're going to give me a Grammy for best solo. And that's attending to somebody else's reaction, right? Etc., etc., etc. Suffice it to say, there are many things vying for your attention as you play music. So practice your mental toggle switch, shifting your focus from inner to immediate to proximal to wide. As you gain a sense of intentional control over where you are directing your attention, then ask yourself, who is the one paying attention? That's really the doorway to meta awareness. In a meta state, you're the witness, the observer of your own attention. From a meta awareness, you can be non judgmental, you can be intentional, and you can experience flow, which is kind of basically an experience of doing and observing simultaneously.
This is reminding me, I know you mentioned effortless mastery. Isn't there a kind of exercise in there where you play and you imagine looking down on yourself, like as some kind of a audience member or maybe like weird angelic being, and you're like watching yourself playing from the outside while you play? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, yes, yes. You know what? It's been a long time
Yeah.
since I read that book, like 20 plus years. And I got to take a couple of lessons with Kenny later in my 30s. And he's such a profound cat, man. And I think if I had an aspirational figure as a teacher, it would be a combination of Kenny Werner and Charlie Banacos, who was like my teacher guru in my early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Charlie was the ultimate do this, do this, do this,
Very
do this,
ordered, is how I understand
do
his
it in
teaching.
12 keys, get it automatic. Um, and and if you were a diligent practicer, you would do these things just because Charlie told you to,
Mm-hmm.
and they were a pain in the ass, but you just do them.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, this stuff would start, happening in your playing that had never happened before. Um, and uh, but it wasn't quite enough, right? Like I still effed up song form all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I still like really struggled with the mental process of like the self judgment and kind of the storytelling about what other people were thinking while I played.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So gaining some control over that side is much more elusive, right? And that's what I'm really trying to work with and integrate in my teaching. Um, I'll show you another one that I have on flow here. Uh, for my students in school, um, they're all like getting good at playing licks, and yes, they need to work on licks and voicings and
Sure.
whatnot and tunes. But when we talk about this stuff of like getting into observer awareness and then getting access to flow state, it's it can be very like okay, but how, right?
Sure.
Um, and so I just have three really simple things that I make students practice. And we're going to start an improv class in a couple of weeks here. And at least once, if not a few times uh, each quarter here, I have the students play as a band, and we actually just stop randomly, and they say, "Okay, so what were you thinking, or what was your inner experience?"
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about these three things here: don't play, listen to others, and three, think ahead, as like gateways to metacognition. Because what all three of those things do is they take you out of your habitual mental processes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You kind of imagine, if you can imagine, like mentally, normally we get into kind of a groove, right? and then you're just kind of like following the groove as you go through the tune, and you get to the end. It's like, whew, cool, that was fun and hard, jazz, yeah. uh, and these three things all take you out of that groove, right? And
So
up towards
I'm
the.
curious. The first two are somewhat intuitive to me. The
Hmm.
third one isn't, because usually when I think about flow, I think about being present in the moment, and I think about not thinking. So,
Yes.
so think ahead is kind of curious to me. What do you mean by that?
So uh, there's a in the moment, in the actual like experience of presence in
Hmm.
present moment. Um, if we are in any kind of analytical mind, like frontal cortex processing information, etc., or judgment or whatever, um, then we're actually not really in the moment, right?
So
We're
if you're
just
thinking what notes are in an F major seven, I need to
yeah,
play this arpeggio, I need to play this lick, we're probably not going to be in a flow state.
right, right. And so what thinking ahead does is it actually takes you out of the it takes you out of that getting stuck in the like stuff that's happening mode, and puts you in a metacognition uh,
Hmm.
in the time sense, right? So if you think about maybe kind of four-dimensional reality of time space, and we have a space, and in the present moment you can be here. If you think about what's coming, you open up your you open up your awareness to a meta awareness,
Interesting.
right? And then that gives you access to potentially to flow, where you stop, because what happens in flow, right, is that you're actually kind of doing and observing at the same time. Normally, when people describe the flow state, it's like I was watching myself, run or play or execute this amazing thing, and I didn't. It was like I wasn't even doing it; it was just happening,
Right.
right? So any metacognitive practice or awareness is like a gateway, and if you could just push that gateway a little bit further open, boom, you can enter that state of doing and observing at the same time.
And when you say think ahead, is it like think ahead musically of like, well, we're getting to the bass solo next, so I'm gonna wind down? Is it think ahead to like, oh, I really am gonna order that chicken piccata for dinner tonight? Or like, ooh, I hope in 10 years I'm gonna be able to retire and buy a boat. Like, is it any of those things?
No, I'm thinking musically, definitely
Musically.
musically. Yeah.
But there's also a danger there because then you kind of like form a narrative of here's where my solo is gonna go, right? Like there could be a over
Yeah.
control
Yep.
or a suffocating there. Does that make sense? Because I've definitely had that experience too of like, oh, I'm gonna make this climax, and then it doesn't, if that's not where the music wants to go, then that's no good.
Totally. Yeah. There are perils at every turn for the improviser. Yeah.
So do you have an activity that I could try or that people at home could do that might involve some of these things?
Sure, sure. Um, let's I'm going to show you one other sheet here. This is about strategic thinking and improvisation.
Okay.
Um, and let's just take an improvisational line or maybe a chord or a chord progression,
Okay.
and uh, and work on the toggle switch, the mental, like intentional mental toggle switching. Um, and so this is like strategy rather than awareness. Um,
Okay. What's
if
the
you think
difference?
about all you mentioned this, like all the different ways that we would generate material, right?
Right.
Could be energy, it could be a pattern, intravalic thing, could be an instrumental thing. The only the stuff you can do on the piano, right? Nobody else can do that. There's not one other instrument that can do anything like that, right? To that's piano. Any of these things you can only do, and interacting. Oh, we're not going to do that, but that would be a live thing, right? your stylistic language, etc. Right? Okay,
Okay.
cool. I got that in my fingers. I could play that in 12 keys. Great. I'm just gonna pop that out. Harmonic strategies, melodic strategies, really singing, you know. Uh, For me, that's a melodic strategy. Um, uh, Using the structure or the form of the tune, uh, using a rhythmic strategy, and all of that really like the trump card for me is motivic development.
Mm.
Because every single one of those things, as soon as you play one idea, it's a motif,
Mm.
right? Um,
So you almost
so
like choose one of those as a starting place,
yes,
as your first, card that you're drawing.
yes.
And
So
then
let's
the second card is going to be based on that first card, and so you're in the realm of motivic development then.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different things you can do with this. One that I make my students do is actually just like write a series of lines over one chord or a chord progression um, that reflect like three different strategies,
Mm.
and you get to choose, right? Uh, and then we'll do those and see if we can guess what their strategy is.
Oh, that's fun.
And then maybe we improvise if we have time, right? We'll get into actually improvising over a groove or a tune, and use motivic development from each of those
Mm.
kind of generative ideas, right?
Cool, cool, cool. Uh-huh.
So we could just try that.
Oh yeah, you want to play a little guessing game between the two of us?
Sure, sure. And then
I
I
think
would
that'd
say
be
like
fun.
if you wanna use this kind of thing as a gateway to practicing metacognition,
Mm-hmm.
and then that as a gateway even further to flow, right? But but if you practice the strategic thinking as a gateway to metacognition, it's really about the toggle switch. So you would choose either a repeating groove or you know a tune that's appropriate to your level that you have like total command over,
Mm-hmm.
right? And and then uh, you can set parameters of like when you're going to change your your strategy, and it forces you to engage your mental toggle switch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to think ahead. Because like, okay,
Interesting.
every 4 bars I'm gonna on a blues, let's say, every 4 bars I'm gonna change my strategy, or every
Uh-huh.
chorus I'm gonna change
Uh-huh.
my strategy, right? And yeah, so then like you're having to think ahead, you're having to pay attention on that meta level that's expanded in time, right?
Mm.
And you're having to engage your mental toggle switch. And
Got it.
you can scaffold this for students depending on how much command they have over these things, right? So it's just a one chord jam, and it's a really obvious point that we're gonna change, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna prompt you verbally,
Hmm.
all the way to like an advanced jazz student where you're playing on an advanced standard, and they have autonomy to choose when they're gonna toggle.
Okay. I
There's a
dig it.
lot of points on that spectrum.
Yeah,
but
no, I'm thoughtful because I'm reflecting that maybe my idea of flow was unrealistic. Because
mm,
to me, like when I think about flow, I think about really not thinking. But you're kind of explaining, if I'm hearing you right, and please, tell me, you're explaining kind of the flow state, the ideal state as being in that state of metacognition, of being able of having thoughts, but kind of almost observing and controlling those thoughts. Is that
mm.
logical
Yeah,
or
I
no?
mean, I think there is a letting go of control
Mm-hmm.
that happens in the flow state as I know it,
Mm-hmm.
and like Mihai Csikszentmihalyi is the one who kind of codified flow with his book, right? Um, uh, he he talks about that experience of doing and observing as kind of the core of it, and it's an experience where you're getting almost constant feedback. So
Mm-hmm.
this it's not that you've transcended awareness.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, like the recognition of things happening. which is some kind of thought, right? But it is that you are not consciously processing information, like calculating things. You're just doing, and you're observing it. And when you really hit that flow state, there's not a sense of like uh, effortful calculation that's driving your doing. It's a sense of just doing.
Well, let's play a little music. Why don't we do a couple rounds of the guessing game, and then I want to try your exercise, maybe switching every 4 bars between different mind states, if that's okay.
Yeah, great. Yeah,
All
let's
right.
do it.
So, do you want to put that the categories back up, and I'll let you go first. You want to like play a blues, and
Sure.
you choose a category, and I'm gonna try to identify which one you're thinking about.
Okay. Let's see.
I guess the rhythm stood out for me more than anything else. Is that what you're
Okay.
thinking about? Cool.
Good.
All right.
Yep.
Well, let's see. I'm gonna choose. Um,
Oh boy, was that a pattern?
yeah, I was thinking about pattern.
Nice.
All right, you take another one.
Okay, let's see.
I'm getting competitive. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, let's see. How about okay. Two. All right.
Was that focusing on your instrument capabilities?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Stuff you can only do on the piano.
Yes. Okay. Cool. Cool. Cool.
A travel of 80 keys, right?
Uh,
The words.
all right. I'm gonna try a thing.
Put on my
One,
overhead.
two.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. One, two, one, two.
Oh yeah, that's so beautiful. I love the way you just played that 5-1. That was so Keith.
Thanks.
Woo. Melody.
Melody. Yeah, you got it.
Oh, you sung to me right away. Did you hear me? I was like, Yeah.
All right, let's each do one more. We're gonna have to stretch ourselves. We're getting out of the obvious ones.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm scared to do stylistic language because I might play some bullshit.
Is that what stylistic language is code for, actually?
No. Stylistic language is like, okay, yeah, you've really done your homework, which some for some things I have and some things I haven't.
Sure.
Just be honest. How? Okay, I'll try this one. How about? Okay.
All right, McCoy, calm it down.
Yeah.
That could be stylistic language in a Super McCoy category, but I'm guessing it was more of a harmony
Yes.
intent. Okay,
Yes.
cool.
McCoy's one of the cats who I go to for harmony, right? McCoy or Herbie, if I was, or like a Mulgrew. If I was gonna go to some really hip diminished shit, right? I go to Mulgrew or Herbie.
I'm trying to do more study on that era of folks now because it's definitely a missing link in my playing. I can fake it, but I can't really do it. Okay, here's my last one.
Woo! I love gesture. It's one of my favorite ways to play. I love listening to it. It's very affirming to hear you play and just get so much joy from it. It's instant
Yeah.
joy for me. It's like it's so playful.
Yeah, I had a really interesting lesson with Gerald Clayton where we were talking about like fast playing, and he like heard my fast playing, and I've been shedding, and he was like, "Yeah, it's really good. Think more about the gesture and less about marking the every eighth note or every like bebop phrase or whatever." He's like, just kind of let some of it go into a gesture, and that really affected the way that I played fast. So it was rewarding.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow. Beautiful.
let's see, do we have time? All right, we got a couple minutes. I want to give a try to your exercise, doing every 4 bars. So I'm gonna write down
Great.
what I'm thinking about every 4 bars so that I keep it somewhat organized, because
Yeah.
otherwise it's gonna get overwhelming, and then we'll reveal it and we'll see if you can guess.
I love it.
Okay, so I'm gonna do this, then I'm gonna do this. This is like a little game show here that we're developing.
Love it.
Maybe the Game Show Network will be interested. And then let's see, the third one is gonna be this. Okay. All right, here's my blues. 4, 4, and 4. Shifting my mindset. This is hard. This is going by pretty fast. Should I be doing like a chorus, chorus, and chorus?
Yeah, to take it down a little bit. Give
Okay.
yourself the chance to easefully do this mental practice, right? Because it's more mental practice than it is physical for you, playing a
Right.
blues.
Okay, I'm gonna do 3 choruses, so I don't have to change so fast. So here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right.
So fun.
What did you think they were? Do you remember?
Melody, gesture. I'm not sure about the last one. Maybe when you started, I was like interval because it was wide intervals, and then
There's a
and
lot
then
of
I was
octaves
singing
here.
only stuff you could do on the piano because you took a wide range and you did like a tenth in the left hand, and then at the end I was like, oh crap, I don't know.
So I was thinking melody, gesture, and rhythm for the last one.
Oh, rhythm. Okay, right.
I was kind of thinking about drumming, on the piano.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
Cool. Thank you. That was super fun. I'm gonna incorporate that into my practice. We have to wrap up because I have a Spanish lesson to get to. But where can people find you if they want to find your Patreon or they just want to learn more about you in general?
Yeah, I think Peter John Stoltzman is pretty much the name that's on Facebook. That's one of my primary places. I'm on Instagram, Peter John Stoltzman Music, peterjohnstoltzman.com, patreon.com/peterjohnstoltzman, YouTube.
And if people want to hear you play more, is YouTube a good place to go? Do you have some recent recordings out?
I do have some recent recordings. My most recent record as a leader is called Spiraling Inward. It's got John Ellis on it, and it's I think it's an album I'm really proud of. And
I
we
gotta check that out.
just put out a record here with a band called The Democracy. It just came out last week. It's a local quintet here in Denver. Fantastic musicians, all original music. So if you want to look up The Democracy on Bandcamp, you'll find our record Second Term. And it's got some really nice stuff on that too.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for spending the time. It's so fun to get to talk to you. I'm just such a fan of everything you do.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate you. And yeah, go habla español. Muy bien.
Thanks, buddy. Take care.
Take care.